Alrighty everyone, as requested once again by 4Corey to delve deeper and deeper into my Thomas collection, I stumbled upon the only 6 ERTL toys I have. But as per normal, it seems there are more and more surprises in the Thomas world than we could ever have possibly imagined. So let's go on and find them out right now. Okay, we'll start by looking at which engines I've got. So as you can see, I've got 3 different road vehicles and 3 different locomotive or trains. Let's go to road vehicles first. First we've got Thumper. Now as we can see, it's quite a large vehicle, especially since he's only featured in 1 episode and never even speaks in the entire series. But I'll come back to that later. On his own, quite an interesting model. He's got a loop on the back, for a purpose that I simply don't know, as well as rotating thumpers that, rather than turning, as it does in television series, literally thump. And so we can see he's got quite a nice representation of the face, and is quite heavy in metal and quite strong and sturdy. These little piston things what I'm talking about, weights have been attached and they're made of plastic, and we've got these plastic treads with plastic wheels. Now, these wheels do not turn very well. Because these have a very tight curvature here, we can see that what happens is, obviously, during sitting in the box before it was bought, the plastic bent so that it's very stiff to roll it, and then now it's easy, and then it locks back into position. Now we move on to Bertie the Bus. Quite a nice representation of Bertie the Bus. However, I have to say I think the cab front sliding here is a little bit too steep and possibly not even prototypical for my liking. If I remember correctly, Bertie doesn't even have this kind of really big slope there. But anyway, someone else could confirm that for me. As we can see, once again, he's got the 4 rotating wheels and moves along quite smoothly. Made of metal, with stickers as decals, as opposed to them being engraved, as we've got here on the windows for Thumper. And then, as with all the other locomotives, the words ERTL written on the bottom, production, year, and number. This one was from 1988, the model, it seems. And Thumper, if we can see him, no, 2001, there we go. On to Butch. Butch has only recently had a speaking role in the series, and that was in series 15. And so we can see that it's interesting they made him so early. So we can see that he is one of the more metal models. Everything being metal bar his crane, which is plastic. As we can see, the hook doesn't move, it's attached. Once again, he's got this little loop. What was this for? Does anyone know? Because I sure don't. He's got 6 wheels, which are plastic, rolls along very nicely. Very nice representation of the face, so you can see that with where his face is sort of peeled away a bit. And once again, your typical, as we're going to see probably many times in this review, ERTL writing. This model from 2001 also. Now I'll move on to the engines. Now as standard, the engines had a clip on the front and a clip on the back. So engines can't actually couple together. But once again, I'll move on to the faults later on. First we get to Chompy Diesel 10. Now, quite a nice representation of Diesel 10. A bit long for my liking in comparison to other engines. And the fact that his claw has no movement whatsoever disappoints me greatly. Possibly the only model in existence that does no movement whatsoever. Which is strange because then we see that the only, apart from the Mega Bloks Thomas Diesel 10, the wind-up, which is also the smallest Diesel 10 on the market, is the only one that has a fully movable claw and opening claw. This ERTL, despite being one of the biggest Diesel 10 models, has none. Now, quite a nice typical Diesel 10 evil face there. Nice long body, and the paint is a funny sort of off colour. It's a little bit yellow as opposed to being the typical brown that we see later on in the series and in the movie itself. And I know he's got too many wheels, I'll get to that in a minute. And once again, we can see the ERTL with the writing. And this one says, ooh, 2001. Now I'll move on to Duck. Duck's got a nice face, a little bit small for my liking, and it's small in the TV show comparison. In fact, his face seems very small when compared to the rest of his body. But still a nice face, and apart from that, quite an evenly proportioned model, very accurate to the TV series model. Now, as we talk about later, he's got these wheels, which are a bit questionable in my opinion. And you can see ERTL made in China. Comes from the USA, however. 1990, there you go, that was nice and clear. And now who on earth is this? Well, I didn't know for a very long time. Turns out it's Bluebell, one of the characters which was written in the Railway series books, and only mentioned in the Railway series books, but was never actually seen in the TV series. Now she's got this painted in red. It's supposed to imitate pistons. However, I don't think her pistons were even red. We can see that she's actually quite a nice looking model. And it's very in proportion. Font's a bit bent, but anyway. And once again we can see that the writing is written on the bottom just with all the other locomotives. And this model was produced in 1985. Interesting, especially for a model that didn't appear in the TV series. So now I've had a quick look at the brief look at all the different locomotives I have. Let's just show you where these locomotives fall down. Alrighty, so what's wrong with these? Well, I like ripping these things apart. As I told you before, this is really flimsy. If the camera comes into focus, one moment. There we go. Alrighty. These are really flimsy, and you see they don't actually drill properly. So, you know, I can live with that. However, the difficulty in rolling this along, as we can see here, is a lot of force. If I just, you know, push on it like a child, no movement from the wheels. So Thumper disappoints me there. He also disappoints me because he's huge. Seriously. I would have foregone the moving treads and have rollers of some description, and have less movable parts, to have a toy that's actually in scale with everything else. Now, before someone attacks me, I'm going to say, I don't actually know. This could have been a separate scale set series or something. However, I find it hard to believe that a character like this would be featured in a series of different scales. And if it was, that was a big mistake on ERTL's part. So if anyone can answer me, if this was actually in another series, please correct me. However, if it's not, mistake one. And like I said with Bertie, I don't actually think there's a curve, or his curve is far too much anyway, on the front of his driver's cab. Butch, to be honest, I can't actually complain much about Butch. I haven't found anything wrong with him. It would have been nice to have a moving hook, or at least a protruding hook, even if it was just plastic, as opposed to it being attached. But apart from that, good. Now the engines. Plenty to chew up onto these engines. Firstly, the wheels. These wheels are rubbish. Spindly little metal plastic things, and as you can see, I've lost 2 sets of Diesel 10's wheels. So, the wheels on these sets are really quite rubbish, and with the underframes, terrible. Now, onto Diesel 10, as I said, I've already criticised the paint job and the claw, but hang on. How many wheels has Diesel 10 got here again? Someone? Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 wheels? Seriously? This is 4 times as many as what's supposed to be on there. Diesel 10 is supposed to have 8 wheels. Sorry, double. I can't count. It's meant to have... This has double the amount of wheels necessary. Why? What purpose did this possibly serve? Surely having extra wheels cost ERTL more to produce a locomotive rather than less. All they needed was 2 here, these 2 here maybe, these 2 here probably would have been the best plan. And this one, which is missing as you can see, and this one here. So the fact this has way too many wheels is greatly disappointing. Now I move on to Duck. As I said, Duck was a nice model, and once again I complained about his wheels and the pathetic excuse for pistons. However, here is something interesting. Look at this wheel here. Get it in the light here, we can see that this wheel isn't actually round all the way. It's got a flat spot, and another one. This wheel is not round. It's not been cut round from the factory. From the day that this was received by my brother, it has never had a round wheel. Meaning, so when we roll him along, his back wheel doesn't turn. So we can automatically see a problem with these kind of flimsy wheels, which it seems aren't actually molded, but cut out by something, as opposed to being molded die cast. So this further reinforces the badness, excuse my language there, but badness of this system. So really, the wheels on Duck, that was very disappointing for me, having one wheel that simply would not turn. And now on Bluebell, once again I say, the pistons, pretty ordinary. It was a nice attempt. However, as we can see, the undercarriage is extremely flimsy. Look at this. This was normal wear and tear, I have to say. There was none of me, you know, purposely going around it, and I was actually quite a conservative toy player when I was little, making sure to get the least amount of scratches on my engines as possible, making the cleanest derailments. And yet still, the front of Bluebell's undercarriage is coming off. as well as we can see, the flimsy buffers and couplings, which really aren't much help because, as we can see here, if they're bent like diesel 10s, or if they get pushed closed, you can't really use them. So this raises some questions, doesn't it? Are these ERTL series, now once again, I only have 6, so I can't really judge all of them. Some people have described them as the best of the entire Thomas range ever produced. Now I have to say, in some cases, such as Thomas, they are. But in many cases, I think that the ERTL are just as bad as anyone else. Sure, they're not like Mega Bloks, who have no idea how to make toys even if they had to save their lives. But certainly I think the wooden range is a very close contender to the ERTL for trying to keep things to scale and looking realistically like television and railway series. So it poses the question, doesn't it? If we could choose now, would we still all want to go back to ERTL, or are take and plays more suitable for today's generation of toy players? Would these kind of engines survive in today's environment, with these kind of flimsy wheels and flimsy couplings? And would people really be complaining about the new diesel 10s? They would start complaining about the old ones, with details like this, which are completely unnecessary, and a lack of functionality from the floor. So, have your comment. Would you rather them still be selling ERTLs, or would you just rather take and plays? If you had to choose, which one would it be? I think, to be honest, take and plays, despite all their problems, are more suited to today's play environment and toy environment than these ERTLs are. But now it's up for you, and that's all for now, and probably most of all, until next year, this is TrainzXtreme.